Good afternoon. First, I'd like to thank Commissioner Yiengst for sitting with me this afternoon to help us understand the historical context to the school to prison pipeline. I would be remiss if I did not intro with a little bit of her background before the questions start. She served as the Director of Bilingual Education, serving the Reading School District for 37 years. She's currently in her role as Vice Chair of the Commission for Pennsylvania Human Relations Commission and has served in this role for 44 years. So I'm excited to ask you the questions that we have so that you can give us, again, the historical context and help us learn where we are at today and what routes we can take in the future to improve the process. All right, so question number one. What trends did you see throughout your career that still exist today?
Well, first of all, I want to thank you, Cheryl, for giving me the opportunity to sit here with you and talk about a subject that is so dear and near to my heart, and for which I have a great deal of passion, which is education. I have been an educator all my life, and that's the role that I have enjoyed the most ever. Um, I am by no means an expert on education. However, I have some experiences that have led me to realize how important education is in my early years, and also to realize that education is the only way for some of our people for upward mobility. We all know that if you do not have an education, you have a pretty difficult time navigating the economy and the jobs that are out there. When I came to the Reading School District, there were 400 Latino children in the Reading School District, and they were many of them were in special education because they had been tested by an English speaking psychologist with an English speaking test. And when I saw those children sitting there in special education, it broke my heart, number one. Number two, it took me back to my days uh, as a student when my parents sent me to the United States to college, and I was a freshman in college and a non English speaker. So I saw in their faces myself all over again. And I started to ask questions. I was young and I was fearless. And so I didn't care whether I had a job or whether they had fired me or not. And so I started to ask some questions that they really didn't have answers for. And they were very difficult questions. First question that I asked was, why are these children here? And when they told me what happened, I just couldn't believe it. And I was bracing enough to say to the superintendent, well, I guess if I give you a test in Spanish, you will fail also. And he looked at me and like, how dare you talk to me like that? But, I just wanted him to realize that uh, anybody, no matter whether they're young or old, if you are treating them or teaching them in an English that is not your own, they're not going to be able to perform. Also, the children that were in regular classes, and by regular classes, I mean where everybody else is, the Hispanic children that were there had limited English. And I guess if they ask you the question, what's your name? And you say, my name is Maria, they said, oh, they speak English, put them in regular classes. And so those children were suffering also because they were expected to perform at the level of all the other children when they really couldn't. Another thing that really surprised me and bothered me was that they had changed the names of all the children from Spanish to English. There was no longer Maria, it was Mary. There was no longer Jesus, it was Jesus. There was no, and so on and so forth. So the teachers started, they were very thankful that I was there, and they started to ask me all kinds of questions. And one of the questions was, why do these children do not respond to me when I talk to them? And I said, well, because you're calling them by a name they don't know. That's not their name. Oh, but I didn't know. Well, you have to learn their names and you have to learn how to pronounce them so that they respond to you. The other thing was, they never look at me. They always looking down. Well, you don't understand that that's a cultural thing. In our culture, they are giving you the biggest respect that they can by lowering their eyes. If they would look at you straight in the face, that would be disrespect because that's the way we are taught. And so, so many little questions that were so important for the ability of the teachers to be able to communicate with these children. And so, that's where my battle began.
Can I ask then, do you think that those barriers still exist today?
I have no knowledge of what's going on in the schools in the district because we have not been involved with the schools. I am not involved with the schools. As a commissioner, they said that we could go in the school and so on, but that is a very difficult thing to do if you are not invited or whatever.
Sure.
And so, I have left that up to the commission staff because I am a commissioner and I don't get involved in the day-to-day operation of the commission. Whether it still exists or not, my answer would be take a look at the dropout rate, and then you tell me if those conditions still exist.
Yeah.
So our students are dropping out like flies. There's no doubt about it. Um, One of the things that I think when you put all children in a classroom, sitting in regular class, and sitting there, and the teacher in the front teaching, a teacher is going to teach to the middle, and the very bright will get it, the middle will get it, and the ones on the left are left behind. Uh, so what I did when I created the bilingual program in Reading was that I started with individualized and small group instruction. My bilingual classrooms were not like a regular classroom when you walk in. You had children sitting in a group here and in a group here and a group here because when these children come from the different countries, you know, e- each child is totally different. You cannot put them together because I could have a student that came from Mexico at age 10 that had never been in school.
Right.
So where do you place them? You're not going to place them in kindergarten. You have to place them in fourth grade. And if you're going to teach fourth grade, it's ridiculous to even think about it. I could have a child that was in Puerto Rico and repeated first grade 3 times.
Wow.
And now he's 9 and in first grade. So, but I don't have the time to go on and on to tell you all the problems that I saw.
Sure.
But what I saw was that a regular classroom did not fit the needs of the students.
And I think that that's a major takeaway from this conversation with you is that it's important to look at each child and meet their needs equitably. And as you said, if a 10-year-old came here with Spanish speaking as his primary language and he's put into a classroom of his peers, we're already doing that child a disservice by not providing him the resources that he needs.
So, as I say, the other thing that I think is extremely important, and I saw declining over the years, was the parental involvement. I
Yes.
did my doctoral dissertation in parental involvement. And parental involvement is very important to me because, that's where everything begins at home. And, I get very sad every time I am having a discussion or a training and people always say it's the parents' fault. We are always pointing to the wrong person. We need to know where those parents come from and what their educational level is and what their culture is before we can say it's the parents' fault. I'm going to give you an example. In the Hispanic culture, the the school is the second home and the teacher is the second mother. And when the parents send their children to school, they feel they are totally protected and that everything in that school is doing everything for their child. No need for them, who is an educated, probably illiterate parent, to get involved in the mix. So that doesn't mean they don't care. That means they trust you. But you know what? That trust is ill founded.
It's broken here in this country.
Because that's not the way it is. Also, parents, we said parental involvement. Oh, we're going to have a day where we're going to serve rice and beans and cultural thing, and then after that it's forgotten. That's not
Yeah.
what cultural training is. Teachers need to know about those children. You know, my bilingual teachers made a home visit to those children. Regular classroom teachers, God forbid, they are not allowed or whatever to go into the homes. You cannot possibly know the background of these children if you do not make an effort to really find out what their background is. And their
Absolutely.
background has a lot to do with their behavior,
Yes.
you know, and their culture has a lot to do with their behavior. I remember children being suspended at the junior high in Reading because they the teacher went like that and they grabbed the finger and they said, the only person that can point the finger at me is my mother.
So with that,
So
is cultural upbringing then
absolutely.
a reason with misinterpreting your students that could lead to a school to prison pipeline?
Absolutely. And you know, the other thing that bothers me is suspensions. That is a free ticket for children.
Talk to me more about that. What do you
Well,
mean?
you know, when I was in the Reading School District, if you did something, you know, that they felt you were wrong, they suspended you for 3 days. After 3 days, the parent have to write a note or come to school with the child. The parents sometimes don't know how to read or write, or sometimes don't have pencil and paper, which you would say that's ridiculous. Well, it did happen because I saw it happen. And so if they don't bring the note, they have to stay home. So if they are there out a week, they are a week running the streets or doing whatever it is that they do. Suspension is not a punish. Suspension is a ticket to freedom for those children, especially children who are sitting in classrooms, vegetating, and with a lot of problems, bullying and calling names and so on. They can't wait to get out of that classroom. So they begin to act up so that they're suspended. They know.
Wow.
They're smart, you know.
So there's a lot to this proponent here. Can I ask you then, what approaches should be taken that are currently not being done to assist students that are impacted by the pipeline?
Well, for example, one of the things that I would say when I'm talking about suspension is, yes, children need to be punished. Children need to know that they did wrong and that every wrongdoing has a consequence. But let's do it in a way that it does not interrupt their education. So in-school suspension, I think that's a good thing. If they go to a room where they have a teacher and they have to bring their homework and do their homework, and that teacher is, you know, working with them as if he or were the classroom teacher. So school suspension out there in the street, it's a ticket to pipeline.
So I love this. I love this suggestion made by you then that the school perhaps could collectively look at their disciplinary measures and instead of sending students out of the building, keep them in, but with a different kind of structure. So it's, yes, to a degree, a punishment if appropriately called for, but we're also keeping the student in a safe environment and providing them the resources that equitably meet their needs.
And I also think, you know, that if you take those children and put it in another class with another teacher and following the assignments and the curriculum of their regular class, that also is kind of an embarrassment, and they might want to return to the classroom and act differently because, you know, children want to be with their peers. They don't want to be over there where everybody knows, oh, look, he's over in that class, he's not sitting here with us.
Yeah.
Is what I mean. So the other thing that I feel is that since technology has developed all over the place, it seems to me, and forgive me if I'm wrong, but that now we're depending on technology to do the teaching, and you know, technology is foreign to these families. They don't have computers at home. They don't have cable, you know, and so to give a child a computer and send them home with a computer, you know, uh, I just don't think that is the proper way to educate these children. That these children need an interaction with another human being,
Yes,
in order for them to, and somebody that can guide them into the right direction and that can support them and feel that they're valued. So
I love that suggestion. That brings me then to take the question to another level of marginalized students, let's talk about the refugee students that leave areas of war and come to our country. How can we meet their needs and prevent a school to prison pipeline situation from occurring?
Well, we're talking about children now who have been displaced, and I think anybody that comes into this country is displaced, whether they're Mexicans, whether they're Puerto Ricans, Colombian, Dominican, it doesn't matter. They're displaced. And when they're displaced, they're going to be out of sorts because, it's an entirely different world for them. And so there's got to be a transition into that that is done by, I would imagine, in school, because that's the place where they're going to be going. But there also needs to be for the adults because they don't understand the rules, they don't know what's going on,
Right.
and especially if they don't speak the language.
Absolutely.
That's another problem. And I know what I'm talking about are very large and complicated problems. But I don't think it's something that we could not solve if we could really put our mind, because this country can do anything they want to.
I love that. I love that. So, in summary, Commissioner Yiengst, according to what you saw in the last 40 years of the educational system, is that if we do not reach that individual child with their specific needs, and we instead are grouping them and providing them the same platform of resources, we are in essence failing our children.
Absolutely. And let me tell you, one of the things that I saw happen was that in order to solve this problem, they took teacher aid in the classroom to translate to the child what the teacher was teaching. Can you imagine how disruptive that is for the teacher and for the child
And the other students.
and the other student? So, putting an assistant in there, I'm sorry, I don't think that solves the problem. I think it complicates the problem.
I think, though, there are both good things and still issues that remain. So we've made progress in some areas, especially where schools, advocate for the funding, advocate for the resources, and provide it for the students. But overall, it sounds like we have a lot of work to do. But I think it takes the teachers, the administration, funding to come together, the school board, and someone with,
I just kind of spoke against having an aide in the classroom. But, in the program that I created in Reading, I had an aide in the classroom. So you say, well, you had an aide in the classroom. Yes, but I did not have a traditional classroom. I had group and individualized instruction. The teacher taught, the aide reinforced, and the student did independent work. So our classroom did not look like a regular classroom. You saw a group over here, a group over there, and a group over there.
Yeah.
And they were all learning with the teacher, with the assistant reinforcing the lesson that the teacher just taught, and then they going in a group and doing something relevant to the lesson that had just been taught.
Wow. That's incredible.
It was incredible. I'm sure that there's other program better, and I hope so, but it worked for us in Reading. Yes. Because those children were able to transition then into the regular classes. We taught 3.5 hours of English concentration, and then we taught math, social studies, and science in their language, introducing the academic vocabulary. Because you see, if you are learning English over here for 3 hours, and then you go in the regular class, you're falling behind in the academics.
Right.
So you might be speaking English perfectly and understanding English perfectly and with even an accent like I have. However, where are your academics? If you were in this program for 4 years, you're going to be 4 years behind in the academics. So they're learning English at the expense of their education.
That's a powerful statement right there.
Yes.
And I think that schools and administrations need to take a closer look then at not just the ability of teaching our students English, but also where are they at cognitively, what do the teachers understand culturally, and help, again, provide a separate classroom possibly for those students where they are missing out on the education if they are focused on learning English?
Let me tell you something, Cheryl. I got a lot of flack in the Reading School District, and I had to fight very, very hard for this program. And it was not unusual for me to be called by the school board to come in and say, we want to eliminate your program because, you are retarded the education of the children. So I said to them, absolutely. I'll tell you what. If you think that in the program that I had, I am teaching English, you're totally wrong. We are educating non-English speaking children. Let me tell you why. You don't want the bilingual program? Put the children in the back in the playground, put them in front of a TV, put them in regular classes, and they will learn English. They are not stupid and they're not deaf and dumb.
Right.
They will learn English, but they will never be educated.
Mm.
What I'm saying is to educate children, education
Yes.
in the global sense, not learning English. Learning English, they learn English in the streets. We had students that came to me from New York that had been there in New York 6, 7 years, came in, could speak English better than I could, couldn't read or write,
Mm.
couldn't do a math problem because they were learning English at the expense of their education.
Wow. Powerful statement. Powerful statement. So I guess the focus then on, with respect to the school to prison pipeline, reconstruction of our education would perhaps have great impact on lessening the school to prison pipeline.
Well, let me tell you something. When I went in the Reading School District, there were 400 Latino children. The Reading School District is 87% Latino. 87% Latino. If that district has not changed their modus operandi, their education, there's a lot of mistake being made. And I'm not saying that they are. Don't misunderstand me. I'm not damning any school district because I know nothing about what's going on in the school districts today. However, I am saying that what I see in the school to prison pipeline, the dropout rate, the college downs, the graduations, tells me that we still have problems.
Mm-hmm.
And we can say, okay, well, maybe this is by design. We need those people to not achieve anything. But it would break my heart to know that one of those children could become a scientist or a good surgeon or a good attorney.
Right.
And that they were robbed from
from that
from
opportunity,
the opportunity to do it.
because the resources were not adequately
Exactly.
provided. Commissioner Yiengst, we often hear of the challenges facing BIPOC students, Black, Indigenous students of color. What problems or issues do you see that are overlooked as a result of the grouping approach?
Well, here's one. Here I go again. As a result of grouping, I think we're missing a very large population when we say children of color, because we have probably the largest minority in the United States, which is Latinos. And the Latinos have different issues than what we refer as to Black or Pacific Islanders or children of color, because two big issues are language and culture. And I attend so many meetings where they speak about children of colors, but never once they speak about the issues of Latinos. And I'm the one that always have to say, wait a minute, how about the non-English speaking population, how about the culturally different population? So that bothers me. It's not that I care that you group them with people of color. Some of the Latinos I know are offended by being called people of color. It doesn't bother me personally because I am who I am. And even though people many times have asked me when they know that I'm Puerto Rican, well, how come you're white? And, that gets me into a real dissertation.
Yeah.
Education. To me, it's not offensive. To me, it's an educational time
Mm-hmm.
because I understand these people know nothing
Right.
about Puerto Rico or whatever. The other thing is, when people say to me, "You are one of the ones that made it,"
Wow.
and my question is, "What do you mean?" "Oh, well, because you came to the United States and you became this and that." I said, "No, I came to the United States because my parents sent me to college in the United States to learn English and to get my education. I was made before I came to Reading." So here again, often I try to take these insults, which are really an ignorance, as a teaching moment.
Yes.
And believe me, there are many, many times where there's the opportunity to teach somebody, and I take that opportunity, and they get more than they want, but so be it.
Okay. So, Commissioner Yiengst, I have one more question to ask you, and that would be, what positive approaches have you seen or been privy to that other institutions can adopt to assist marginalized students?
Not in Pennsylvania, but I'm always researching education in the United States, and I was very impressed with one thing that I read recently, and that was that a school district in a certain state took made a big chunk of their money and used them for tutors.
Mm.
And we didn't talk about this, but early education to me is the base for everything.
Mm.
So what this school district did was that they hired teachers as tutors and took those children that were lagging behind
Mm-hmm.
and brought them up to snuff. So it was not, somebody that have a fourth grade education or whatever. It was a teacher who became a tutor. And for that, they were using retired teachers.
Oh, wow.
And that they were using people that have had previous educational
Mhm.
experiences. But you have to start at the very beginning.
Yeah.
So, these children are like sponges when they are 5, 4, 3 years old. And you miss a great opportunity. I'm going to ask you a question, not to embarrass you.
Okay.
But I'm going to ask you a question. If I give you 30 first graders in a classroom, what do they have in common?
Energy. I would just say simply the fact that they're in first grade, that they're young.
The only thing that they have in common is their age.
Yeah, their age.
That is it. Okay. So now we have 36-year-olds.
Yeah.
And now we have 30 individuals.
Right.
But we are teaching 30 group instruction. How many of those children have the 1500, the 500 word vocabulary that you need to start reading?
I would say.
How many? It's rhetorical
Okay.
questions. How many of those children have had the experiences of ever being in a zoo or a museum or travel abroad? How many of those children have parents that are literate enough that started to teach them reading at home?
Mm-hmm.
The ABCs, the numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the parents of these children are surviving. Survival is their main thrust. Teaching their children, they're going to wait until they go to school so that the school does the miracle of teaching them.
Yeah.
Okay? So if you take those children, the first thing you have to do is analyze each individual child and then group them accordingly.
Yes.
If these children don't have vocabulary, well, send them to the tutors that
Can teach that part.
If they haven't had experiences that are in the book, take a Mexican child, for example, and show him a giraffe. Maybe they've never seen a giraffe.
Right.
Or a lion, or a camel. They didn't have the parent that took them to the museum, went and taught things. They didn't have the parent that labeled everything, refrigerator, kitchen cabinet, stove. and then started to
Teach them.
us. No. So how can you expect that these 30 children are going to all succeed by teaching
the one
to the group?
format, right?
So I thought that when I saw that, I thought, wow, isn't this wonderful? Look, it's almost like individualized instruction.
Yes.
And the teacher in the classroom has enough to do, not to have to be worried about every child.
Right.
Because it's an impossibility. They need a lot of help.
Mm-hmm.
Teachers need a lot of help to deal with all the issues that come from the outside.
So capture the students as young as you can.
Absolutely.
Address what
Absolutely.
they need. Identify how much they've been socialized or what their cultural background is.
Absolutely.
And that will give you an overall understanding.
Parents.
Yes.
Have a night where the parents come to school and, we're going to talk about your child.
Right.
Involve the parents in whatever way you can.
Yes.
So that they feel part of it.
Yeah.
Parents basically have had very bad experiences with schools,
mm-hmm.
and they're very defensive.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why they react so badly when a teacher says something about the behavior of their child. Because see, they have it in for him like they did it for me. See what I'm saying?
Right.
Most parents, a lot of parents have had very bad experiences in schools.
And that leads to the generational trust. Now we're having generational issues.
Absolutely.
And the problem still exists today.
Absolutely.
I think that was the best takeaway from this conversation is capturing the student young, identifying their needs, understanding their background and their familial status, and how that family structure is for that child. Yes, their language, and having the ability to provide each student where they're at with what they need is certainly going to affect the school to prison pipeline and bring those numbers down.
In my opinion, early childhood is extremely important. It's not giving them a computer, it's not giving them a laptop, it's not giving them a cell phone. It's the personal interaction with another human being that is interested in seeing that those children get what they need in order to succeed. Now, I'm not going to ask a rhetorical question. Are all children going to succeed? Are all children going to become professional? No, they're not. However, if we can save some of those children, also, not everybody has to go to college. Right. Look at the business industry is crying for people that are carpenters and welders and plumbers and electricians. And you know that plumbers and electricians and welders make more money than a doctor.
They make great money.
They make fantastic money with no obligation of saving a life or whatever. But, and we have made it so that that's a bad thing. If you're a plumber, well,
yeah,
you have to, in the United States, when people meet you, what is the first question they ask you?
What do you do?
What do you do? My husband was a school principal, and we used to go to certain affairs, social affairs, and when people ask him, what did you do? You know what he used to say? I'm a custodian. He was the custodian of the school, but he didn't say I'm a principal. People walk away.
Wow, treated him differently.
Of course.
Yeah.
He used to say, well, I'm a custodian.
And little did they know he was a principal.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's so much to talk about and so much to discuss and such little time to do it.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your time this afternoon. It's been a pleasure asking you these questions and learning what the educational system was like throughout the years and where we are today, and hearing about that one group that separated the students by need and meeting them where they're at. It sounds like that is going to be one of the most profound ways that we can help our children today.
Absolutely.
Let's open it up to the floor now for questions. Thank you, Commissioner Yiengst.